So as I have gained experience from cooking from scratch in the kitchen, and I'll be honest, there's a little bit of wisdom that has come with the age, I have found that I love using wood products in the kitchen. There's just something about the way they actually feel in the hand, but also the way they handle. And I also love the part that they are heritage items, meaning if you take care of them properly, and you know what to look for in the beginning when you're buying them, they will last for a very long time. And heirloom things that I can pass down to my kids and hopefully someday to my great grandkids is something that gets me very excited. But when it comes to your wood products, you have to know how to take care of them properly so that they are going to last and serve you well. One of the first things when you're looking at getting your wood products is you really want to be going after hard woods. That means they have the tighter grain. The wood itself is hard, it's not soft, but you really want to look for that tight grain pattern because moisture is the enemy of our wood products. So there's a couple of different things that we need to do to make sure that we're taking care of them properly. One is how we are washing and drying them. And I know that this sounds really, really basic, but for the love of wood, do not put your wood products in a dishwasher or let them soak. So yes, we need some hot soapy water. We're gonna wash them. This one is actually dirty. We used it to cook with the other night and somehow it didn't make its way to the sink. I like to blame it on one of my children. Somebody in the house just put it dirty back in the crock that sits next to the stove and it was up like this. So we're going to wash this. So just a rag, hot water, tap water is fine at hot, and then some soap. And we're just gonna get in here with the hot soapy water and clean it. We're on a well and it takes my water a little bit to get hot, which is why I'm letting it run right now. So there we go. We've got all the pieces off. We're just gonna rinse that. So you can grab a towel just to wipe off the immediate, obviously, where it's wet. So we're just gonna do a quick dry job, but then you really must let this air dry. So it's best if you have some way to prop it up. So if you have a dish drying rack like we have here, this is really going to be ideal. You don't wanna just set it on the towel like this on the counter to dry. We really want airflow to go all the way around. So I'm just gonna put this here. Works great because I've got the slats. Actually, go ahead and move my mason jar there so it's not blocking it. So you can see airflow all the way around. That's going to be able to dry efficiently and quickly. We don't want it to have standing water on it because the pores, even though this is a hardwood and the pores are tight, it still will soak up water if it's left with water on it without good airflow. So I've got some of my items here. And what's nice is this one has the little slats down here. So for things like our wooden dough scrapers, you can just set them right in there and then they're completely upright and they dry really, really quick and well. So some of these items I actually need to do another coating on. I used these yesterday to make biscuit dough. And look at that. I did not get all of my biscuit dough off of there. See, I try to blame things on my kids, but I'm the one that actually watched this. All right, so now we need to get this conditioned. So making sure that you're washing them properly and getting them dried is the first part. But then because it is wood, it's going to dry out even if you're not soaking them and you're washing and drying them properly. So you need to use some kind of conditioner on these wood products so that they last. However, most of the things that you read and see, or even when you're buying them, use mineral oil. Mineral oil is a byproduct of, it's petroleum product. It's what was in oil and with gas. And that goes through multiple refinings to be able to use it and call it food safe or to use it on food products. But come on, it's not. So I don't like to use any mineral oil or petroleum-based products in our home, especially on things that are coming in contact with my food. As you saw, this rolled out my biscuit dough. This is my ButcherBot countertop that, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think. My husband made this, I think like 4 years ago, and this is where I prep and do all of our dough stuff. Everything is on here, and I have never used any mineral oil, and there's no need to use mineral oil. Some of the great things about wood is a lot of people get worried about wood, which is why I'm going to touch on this really quickly about bacteria growth, because they're used to with plastic, like you can soak it and you can bleach it. Well, the really cool thing about wood is it naturally is antibacterial. Even though the wood is dead, right, it's obviously not still a living tree, a lot of the properties that you have in a living tree, which make it resistant to bacteria, still carry over even when it's down and dried and turned into other things. Now, a lot of people will say to use mineral oil because it doesn't go rancid. Well, I have, like I said, 4 years, the only thing that I have used to treat my butcher block and all of my other wood products is I use a combination of organic coconut oil and beeswax. There's no issues with rancidity. This gets used day in and day out. Some of these other products don't get used quite as often, but I've never had any issues. The great thing about using the coconut oil is it is antibacterial, antimicrobial as well. And mineral oil, especially like on the skin, mineral oil smothers, but it doesn't actually like draw, it's not moisturizing in itself. Whereas the coconut oil, and then with the addition of the beeswax as an additional coating, really are going to moisturize the wood, and then the beeswax is going to help repel any moisture from soaking in just during your regular use. So when you are using it, so this is I call it wood butter that we make and that I use, and it's the organic coconut oil with the beeswax. It's quite hard though, so you can see looking at this, see, this is a pretty hard substance. So if you are letting it sit like this in your hand, or like I'll let it sit, like I'll sit and just have it sitting on there, and I'll go through and do all of my wood products at once. Just the body heat will begin to warm it up. So you have two options. Is one, if you have fingernails, is you can just kind of go like that, and you'll get a little bit up, and then you just kind of go, and then your body heat, see, then you can just rub that. You can rub it in. Get a little bit more. So just using the back of your fingernail. And you really just need a little bit. We're just doing a light layer on these. So if the wood is really dry, or if it's a newer piece, like this is one of the newer pieces, these are the dough scrapers that my husband makes, and there'll be a link beneath the video if you want to get on the wait list or check these out further and see the wood products that we make. But this is a newer piece, and so it's only actually had one coating of this. So when it's a new piece and it doesn't have lots of the wood butter that's already been on there, I like to do an application of the wood butter about once a week for the first month, and then after that, just as it seems dry. So we're gonna let that soak in. What's also cool is it really shows the grains. Once you get the wood butter on there, it makes your wood products look a lot prettier. And then I also make sure that I get on the edges. So now you want to just let that sit. You can let it go overnight or for a few hours, and then when you come back, if it feels kind of waxy, then you can just use a towel and buff it off. But usually, if you just let that sit for a few hours, it will soak it all in and there won't be any excess to buff off. So I like to just let them sit overnight after I've done them. Now, you can also, though, especially if you're doing a larger surface, like I'm going to be doing the rolling pin and then I'm actually going to be doing the island, is you can take these tins, turn your oven light on, and I turn the oven on preheat literally like a minute. We're not trying to cook it because it would burn, but it's just going to get it softer. I don't want it to be at a complete liquid state. But so you can see how that's kind of shiny and oily now. That one's a lot more soft. And then it's easy. You can just see that's a lot easier. So I like to do that if I'm doing larger items, if it's a lot bigger surface area, like the rolling pin. And the other great thing is because beeswax and coconut oil are amazing moisturizers, your hands, the skin on your hands is gonna feel like $1,000,000, even if you have been gardening and have gardening hands like in the dead of summer. So now I'm also gonna I'm gonna just do a light layer here on the butcher block. Now, if you wanted to, you can use a towel, especially for doing these larger areas. I like to keep either an older tea towel that I don't care about if it gets stained, because this is obviously oil and beeswax, so there is going to be some staining if you get it on your clothes oil-wise. So if you're using a towel, I just try to use the same towel over and over again, or you can use a paper towel. It's totally up to you. So you might be wondering, like, how often do I need to do this, or how can I tell by looking at the wood if it needs to be conditioned? One is you'll have color change. So the wood will get lighter, because you can see, like, this is where I just did it. So you can see there's kind of a line. This is much duller. It can start to feel rough in spots depending upon the wood, and almost, not really sandpapery, but kind of like a little bit fuzzy. When the wood gets really, really dry, which you really want to avoid. You don't want it to get completely dried out. So I just usually go by time, but if it's something I'm using a lot, then I'll have to do it more frequently. But once you get a good base of conditioner in there on the wood, like I usually do the Butcher Block, and this gets used every single day. I usually do it, honestly, only about every 3 months. I probably should do it a little bit more frequently than that, but life is busy, so that's the good thing. It's kind of forgiving. But when I give it a good one, especially with the beeswax, in the past I was trying to just do it with coconut oil. Like I would buy fractionated coconut oil, which is when it's in its liquid state. But I found that if I mixed up my own and did this wood butter like this that actually had the beeswax in it, then I could get away with only doing this about every 3, sometimes 4 months, just kind of depends. But you really want to go by looking at the feel of the wood, but also as it starts to change in color. So just kind of paying attention to that. And then again, same thing with this, like I will let this sit because this wood will soak this up. So even though it looks kind of greasy almost right now, this I will let sit for about 4 hours. It's really ideal if you do it at night, like at bedtime, do it right before you go to bed, when nobody's going to be in the kitchen. And then when you come in the morning, usually it's soaked all of it up. If there is any excess left, then again, just take like a tea towel, like 100% cotton tea towel, and just kind of wipe down and buff off any excess spots. But normally there aren't any. It usually just soaks all the way in. So while I've already got this one out and soft, here is the spoon that we washed earlier. And this one definitely needs a good coating. And you can see with, this has actually had some years of use on it now, where, it's darker where it comes in contact with the heat and different items that I'm cooking. But I haven't found that it stains really bad. And if I do, put something in there, like use it on tomato sauce or something like that, that's a darker color, usually within a couple of washings, then that is kind of, there's still a little bit of staining. You can see that this is much darker, but overall, not too bad at all. But I kind of like that. It kind of shows that it's being used, and I think it adds to its charm when you have some different color variations there. Not only are your wood utensils good for cooking, but they also can really help you with your cleaning. So if you want to see how I use this to help clean our cast iron and keep it non-stick, you can click and watch that video. And if you're interested in the wood butter or any of the custom wood products that we're making, you can click that link below and find out more.